Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, and this is episode 37. I just can't believe it. 37 episodes. We started these episodes back January, February, doing Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American West. And we've had some great guests, so I hope you'll go back to our YouTube channel. I hope you'll subscribe. We've talked to Kevin Woodson, the rodeo announcer for Cowboys of Color Rodeo. We started off the whole series with the wonderful Herb Jeffries, who was the first black singing cowboy hero when he did 7 movies in the late 1930s. The Bronze Buckaroo, Two Guns from Harlem, things like that. So these great historical characters that we've talked about. We've talked about Aunt Ritty. We've talked about Kathy Williams. The only female Buffalo soldier, these historical characters who lived in the 1800s, whose stories you've probably never heard. So we sure hope that you'll go back, that you'll listen to these episodes, that you can listen on your podcast, or you can go back and watch the videos at our YouTube channel. That's at Wild West Diversity. So you just go to youtubechannel.com at Wild West Diversity, or search Wild West Diversity, and you'll see our great logo there with our Wild West Diversity type and the horses, and my picture and my cowboy hat that I actually lost in the most recent move. So I'll be looking for a new cowboy hat this winter, and I'll be showing that to you shortly. But today's episode, I really want to talk today about the Taylor Stevenson Ranch. This is the only African-American ranch in Texas that was continuously owned by the same family for more than 100 years. So we recently, a few years ago, we lost Mollie Taylor Stevenson Sr. Her daughter is Mollie Taylor Stevenson Jr., and her husband and some of the brothers and sisters own the property now. But she was one of 7 generations that lived and worked on the Taylor Stevenson Ranch. And it was located, and still located, less than 15 miles from downtown Houston, and not too far from the Astrodome, or what was the Astrodome. I don't know what they call it now, because I don't live in Houston, but I know it's still there. It may have a different name because they changed the sponsorship and stuff from years to years. But this is one of the oldest Black-owned ranches in the United States. It was also designated as a part of the Texas Century Ranches for being continuously owned and operated, as I mentioned, by the family for over 100 years. So, we got to go back a little bit. And so this ranch was founded by Mollie's Senior's grandparents, Edward B. and Ann Taylor. But the story actually started even earlier than that, in the early 1800s, where her great-grandfather, Edward W., and his brother, Horace, they were the Taylor boys, and they arrived in Houston shortly after the Texas independence was established, and they had a successful mercantile business. So Edward R., he was the only son of Edward W. He contracted tuberculosis in the Civil War because he was in a detention camp. When he returned home after the war was over, a family slave, Anne, was directed to care for him. And while she was caring for him, they fell in love, and they married, and they moved to a 640-acre ranch outside of town. And so back then, there wasn't any city. There wasn't any, Houston was just like every other place here in Texas. It was just a small town. And so E.R. and Ann, they had 6 children, but only 3 of them lived to adulthood. The remoteness of the ranch at the time allowed them to pretty much avoid any social issues, because interracial marriage was illegal at that time. Anne obviously was African American. Edward was probably white, and so, but because they lived outside and they lived in the country and they lived on their own ranch and did a lot of their own sustainability, they didn't have a lot of issues at first. And so, in those early ranch years, the ranch was successful, but that was mostly due to Ann's hard work because, Edward was not in that good a shape physically. But guess what? Like a lot of places in Texas, they found oil. And when oil was discovered, that really changed things for the family. And that's where a lot of the wealth came from. It came from not only the land, but the resources. And so it was also the second largest oil field discovered in Texas. And so Major Julius Taylor, that was Mollie's father, he was one of the sons of Edward and Ann. Um, he was one of the three surviving children and among the first Black Texans to attend college. But he returned to the ranch later on to raise his family. And so, growing up on the ranch, there's a great picture of Mollie Sr. and Mollie Jr. That's her oldest daughter there, and who actually has, cares for the property today. Mollie does there in the black hat, and then her mother there, Mollie Sr. in the white hat, sitting, of course. And so that's when they were inducted into the Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame over in Fort Worth. So as you can see, this was his family owned business, but growing up on the ranch, Mollie had to do everything that her brothers did. She worked to do it better too, because she loved listening to her grandfather ER's stories of the Civil War. She loved listening and hearing about the ancestors' business successes and the famous people that came to the mercantile and to the ranch. And so Taylor Stevenson Sr., she was a striking woman, as you can see there, very attractive. And she was 6 feet tall. She was strong willed and she was savvy. She was smart. She had multiple music lessons. She traveled widely with her parents because they had wealth. They had money because of this oil that was found on the property. And she received an education at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. But at heart, she was a cowgirl and she loved contributing to the daily task on the family ranch. And so while at college, she met her future husband, Ben Stevenson, a 1930s Tuskegee University football legend. And so her and Ben married, and after a short time in the Northeast, they returned to Houston and lived on the family ranch. Stevenson was hired as a coach at Booker T. Washington High School while his wife kept tabs on the flocks and on the horses and on the goats and the chickens and all of the livestock on the ranch. And so her grandfather, ER's parents, and the numerous animals or the husbands and the students that often visited the ranches, Mollie organized and coordinated all that and managed all of that. So when ER died, following shortly by his son and daughter-in-law, it was his granddaughter who struggled to hang on to the family ranch. But luckily, a well-written will and the determination of the family to keep this ranch going, they were able to maintain that. And because of Mollie Taylor Sr., Stevenson Sr., she fought off all of these threats. She owned the ranch, she kept the ranch, she survived, and she went to court. She fought judges because obviously, as Houston grew and grew, people wanted to take over that land. People wanted to basically steal their land from them because it was, profitable property by this time. We're moving into, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, into the early 1900s, and so. But they kept fighting them off, and she deferred to her husband, and thanks, though, to her grandfather's insight and foresight and the airtight will, the land and the oil rights remained directly with the Taylor Stevenson descendants. And so, like you say, they were educated. So because they were educated, they had that opportunity to protect themselves and to protect their family. And so, a lot of times Mollie's quick wit was the last word and the final word. And her husband died in 1969, and she became basically the ruler of the Taylor Stevenson Ranch, which they had changed the name to include her husband there. And then she handled most of the business affairs up into the late 1990s. And then the family donated part of the original homestead to the city. for ER and Ann Taylor Park. So you can go there to that park. And then in 2001, Taylor Stevenson Sr., Mollie Sr., along with her daughter, Mollie Jr., um, Mollie Stevenson Scott, um, they were inducted into, like I say, the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame in Fort Worth, Texas. So all of Mollie and Ben's children graduated from college. They all owned a slice of the land. Although she finally handed over the daily chores of the ranch to her children, she often rode out on horseback, watching for erosion, checking on the stock, evaluating the wildlife habitats, the water and the flora and the fauna, and all of the things on the ranch. But all but two of her children have homes on the ranch, and they all rallied for family dinners and business meetings, which Taylor Stevenson Sr., Mollie Sr., ran until her death in 2003. And so her daughter, Mollie Jr., has become the matriarch of the Taylor Stevenson Ranch, and they operate their educational mission for schools and church groups and visitors, telling these stories of the past and continuing this legacy of this African American family, the Taylor Stevenson Ranch, that's been going on for even more than 100 years now, because I think the ranch was actually bought in 1875. So 130, 40 years. So we're almost at 150 years maybe here. So this is a great historical story. This is an African American family that was able to hold on to their land. They're the only African American family who owned such a big ranch with so many acres, close to downtown. They're close to downtown Houston, and like I said, like I mentioned, they have educational programs. They allow school kids and churches and other organizations to come out, to be around the animals, to be around horses, because kids in the city just don't normally get that experience, that ranch experience. So here we are sharing another historical legend, Mollie Taylor Stevenson Sr. and Mollie Taylor Stevenson Scott Jr., Mollie Jr. and Mollie Sr. And so these two women, they've kept this legacy of their family along with the rest of the family alive. So I don't know what I did. Somehow I knocked off my light. Oh well. Sorry about that. Or this is live, you never know what happens. Don't move your feet. But anyway, so the other thing that we wanted to talk about today is we actually are also pulled the winners for our Sidekick wallets. As you know, we had two Sidekick wallets that we're going to give away here. And we have a black one and that green one and a brown one, I think. So we actually have three wallets that we're going to give away. So we're drawing some names there. So one of those winners is Hatise. She's been watching our videos. She's been sharing our videos. She's been liking our videos over the years. The last years we've been doing, she's gone back and watched those videos. And so we appreciate you, Hattie, so much for watching. We appreciate, and I'll be mailing off this Sidekick wallet to you. Send me a note. I'll send you a note. You can tell me which one that you would like. The other one is Corey. And so Corey's been watching too. And so Corey, I'm thinking you'll probably want that brown or that black one. I may send that turquoise one over to Hattie. She might like that a little bit better. But as you can see, this wonderful Sidekick wallet by Lance Debray. We had Lance on earlier. You can go back and listen to Lance's wonderful story about growing up in the family business at Wild Bill's Western Store and the retail outlet, and how he was always, as you can see there, he's a dancer. That's a picture of him in the white t-shirt. That's Lance. He's a professional two-stepper, and his partners were always giving him their keys and their wallet and their driver's license and their money to keep. And he said that, we've got to find a solution for this. There's got to be something we can do. And so basically he patented, he created, he drew, he patented this wallet. It's got a zipper. It's got a lock that you can put around your belt loop, or you can put around your boot loop. You can stick it in your boot. You can see there how it's stuck in the side of the boots down there at the bottom. and or you can stick it in the side of your jeans or whatever, and that way, you don't lose your money and nobody can steal it either, because it's got a little lock that goes around and locks, and so if somebody tries to steal that from you, you're obviously going to feel it. They're not even going to be able to see it in your boot probably, but if you've got it on your jeans or the inside of your pants pocket or something, you'd still be in good shape. So we appreciate Lance donating those wallets for us. And then the last one is for Sandra Couch. She's the other person, another person that's subscribed to our YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed yet, please go to youtube.com and search Wild West Diversity, or I think now we've got our handles. YouTube just added handles, so I think at Wild West Diversity, you can find at Wild West Diversity, and there's our buddy Charles Flores Hearn. Corey's a friend of his, and so we appreciate y'all watching. We appreciate you subscribing, and we'll hope you'll come back and do that. At wildwestdiversity.com, you can find our e-newsletter, and we'll be updating that with these past few shows that we've had. We've had some fabulous shows recently. We just had Bubba Burton Gilliam on last week, the Blazing Saddles fame, and Paper Moon, and Evening Shade, and a whole lot of other things. Bubba was in 52 films, 157 television shows, and 200 commercials. So if you don't know his name, I'm sure you know his face. We also had we've had the actor. I guess what do you call the actor bonanza here the last few weeks, because we had Oba Babatunda on as well, the horse whisperer. And so exciting times there, exciting things going on. And we appreciate so much that they would come on and tell their story, their Wild West diversity journey, because it wasn't always easy, And so we've had Doug Smiley on, we've had Tyrus Nolan on, our Crazy Barbecue guys, or Crazy Barbecue Brothers. Doug Smiley's a Tennessee walking horse trainer. So all these great stories that we're talking about here, and these interviews that we're having with real people, these are our living legends that are keeping this Western legacy alive. They have been involved in some activity related to the Western lifestyle. And so we hope that you will go back and watch their stories and listen to their stories. Abe Morris, who was a black bull rider and only black professional announcer, one of very few in the country. And he also has those wonderful chocolate shootout cookies, and so cowboy shootout cookies. And so you need to be watching for those cookies, because he's trying to take that into the next level. He wants to be as famous as Amos and be the next Mrs. Field. So we hope that happens for Abe. We're pulling for you, Abe. So keep that story going there. And last but not least, I want to do a shameless plug. You can see there behind me our Wild West Diversity, our new children's book, our African American Western Legends yesterday. There's our thing on the screen. And so basically, this is our 16 stories about African Americans who lived in the 1800s. We had our illustrator do these wonderful illustrations, take these characters who we only had like maybe a headshot of them. We maybe just had a very limited pictures of them, and then our artist took those and created those wonderful scenes to put this children's book together. And so we hope that you will go out. If you've got children, this is a great book for Christmas. The holidays are coming. Check that out if you will, because there's not going to be a lot of stories about African American Western heroes. And so we want these children of all races to be able to see these heroes, these African American legends that lived and worked and were a part of settling the great American Wild West. And so we hope you'll check that out. You can find that on Amazon.com, Barnes Noble, any retail outlet store. You also obviously can contact me directly at wildwestdiversity@gmail.com, or you can comment in the comments here on any of our shows and drop us a note and say you'd like to get a book, and we'll be in touch. We could certainly send you out one of those at any time. So the last thing I want to do today is really want to talk a little bit more about our famous legendary rodeo founder, Cleo Hearn. I think I was remiss last week in announcing that Cleo has been nominated for the National Western Heritage Museum and Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. He's going to be a part of the rodeo inductees. So Cleo, who started in actually 1954, he did his first competition, I think, when he was 16. He obviously wanted to be a cowboy from the time he was 5 years old, and he marked Marvell Rogers, and we've told that story. He's told that story before, and I think we've got a little clip, an audio clip we'll play here in a minute, and then maybe a video clip as well. But Cleo's going to be inducted next week, November the 11th and 12th. They're doing a reception on Friday night, and then the big black tie banquet will be on Saturday night. And so we're very pleased that Cleo's finally getting some recognition, and he's winning this wonderful award, and he'll be in the museum, and his life and his history and his contribution to the rodeo and Western lifestyle will be there for anybody that comes to the museum to see. So very excited about that. And, it was he was nominated by Lane Frost's wife. Lane Frost, as many of you know, was a wonderful bull rider who was killed riding a bull, and a few years back, and they did a movie about him, and so many people have seen that movie. But obviously, Cleo was a great friend to the family and has known them all his life, and so they were instrumental in inducting him, or getting him inducted and nominated, and all of that. So we appreciate that very much. We'll have some more news coming up for that. We also have a new website that will be coming up. It'll be probably available next week at www.cowboysofcolorrodeo.com. So cowboysofcolorrodeo.com. Got a new site there. You'll be able to go there. You'll be able to sign up, get on our VIP list, so you'll know when the rodeos are coming up. Our next rodeo will actually be the Fort Worth Stock Show on January 16th. That's the Martin Luther King Day, the Monday, the third Monday of January. That'll be a 2:00 rodeo. It's a matinee rodeo that's in the afternoon because a lot of kids are out of school. It's a national holiday, of course, and so a lot of kids and seniors come to that rodeo. So we have that rodeo in the afternoon to encourage that. So that's at the Dickies Arena over in Fort Worth, Texas. So that's coming up. If you want to come to a rodeo, that might be a good rodeo to shoot for. We'll also have the Oklahoma City rodeo the first weekend in May. And we're looking at moving the Dallas rodeo back. So we may be looking at doing that somewhere around Memorial Day at the end of May or early June rather than Juneteenth, because, there are a lot of other celebrations now about Juneteenth and family celebrations. And so we're looking at a few changes there. Obviously, back again in September, we'll have the state fair rodeos that will come back up in 2023 as well. We just had those the past month. Those were very successful, were very well attended. If you had a ticket to the state fair, you were able to go to the rodeo too, and for free, and just go in and sit down in air-conditioned comfort after walking around in the heat for 10 or 12 hours. If you spent all day at the fair, and I know people went multiple times, we went ourselves and took our grandkids for fair day because the schools get out for that. So that was great fun. We had a good time there. But if you would, I think we've got right here at the end, we've got a couple of little videos. So I'm going to see if we can run those. If not, we'll play them for you at a different time. But
a great sense of urgency to be friends. And I'll tell you what, you go back to the black and white situation in the rodeo and world and the cowboy world. But one thing about it, in the old days, they didn't care what color you were, just as long as you could do your job. As long as you could pull that bull off of them or that horse off of them, They didn't care. They slept together. They ate together. All of that, there was, there's no prejudice on the range because it's just you, another cowboy, the elements, and horses and bulls.
Well, Cleo, let me tell you two things that I like about the Cowboys that fit right in my little book about entrepreneurial management. Number one, Cowboys get paid for performance, not effort.
Oh.
And number two, they're all on commission. In fact, there are only two sports where you only get paid if you win, and that's golf and rodeo. But the thing that sets the rodeo industry apart is the Cowboys pay to get in.
Pay to get in.
They pay to get in and are playing often for their own money. And this is something to be said for the cowboy.
Nowadays, a cowboy can make, Trevor Brazil, he won almost $500,000. That's $500,000. Well, Tiger Woods, a golf player.
Yeah, so isn't that fun? So like you say, as Cleo mentioned, not as much, racism on the ranches, out on the trail. I mean, they didn't really care what color you were. Obviously, when you went to town, that changed. A lot of times the African-American cowboys, they couldn't go in the bars. They couldn't go in the restaurants. They had to go to the back door. They couldn't go in the front door. So there was segregation. There was segregation in the towns. We're not saying that there weren't bad situations. We're not saying that there wasn't any racism. There was. But like you say, if you could do your job, that was what the most important thing. And if you kept your word, if your word was your bond as a cowboy, those are some of the cowboy mottos. We still live by those cowboy rules today. And so you can check that out. We've got those on our wildwestdiversity.com. A lot more history there, some articles there, the background on a lot of these people that have been on the show for us. I do think we also have an audio from Cleo, which talks a little bit about when he first started roping. So, like you say, he started in 1954, and it's 2022, and he actually roped up till about 3 years ago. So he roped up till about 79 or 80, and then a shoulder injury and a neck issue basically kept him from competing now, but he even competed up until 79 in senior rodeos and our Cowboys of Color rodeos too. We always let him have a go. And there's a wonderful thing on the Marlboro.com. They did a legacy piece for him on the National Day of the Cowboy back in July. And there's a wonderful piece there. If you want to go there, you can look that up. And you do have to sign in. You have to be 18. I think, or maybe 21, but there's a great piece there. And Cleo talks a little bit for the first time about the racism and maybe not being judged correctly on time and some things like that. But he was always forward looking. He was always looking to win. He was a fierce competitor. You could see the fierce competitiveness in his eyes, even today when he's 83. And he always got up every day wanting to be a cowboy, and he can say he lived his dream. So if you've got a dream, if it's a Western dream, we want to support you. We want to encourage you to do those things. So be sure to check that out. And I don't know if we got our audio file, or do we need to hold it for the next time? Oh, there it is.
Hello, I'm Liz Lawless, and welcome to another edition of Wild West Diversity Radio. Today we're going to be talking with Cleo Hearn, a founder and rodeo producer of Cowboys of Color Rodeos. We're going to be talking a little bit about yesterday and today, where he kind of came from and started, and then later on in the show we'll get to some of the activities that are coming up in the next few months. Cleo, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. And this is a great opportunity for me because I always like to talk about the world of rodeo, the world of horses. And everybody wants to know, well, how in the world did a black guy get into the rodeo business back then? Well, I can tell you this. God must have been intended for me to be here, because I'm 71 years old, and ever since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a cowboy. I still say I never woke up a day in my life when I didn't want to be a cowboy. Still do. I can remember back, well, I had a rodeo in Oklahoma City, and a lady said the most heartwarming thing that a person could say to you. And she said to me, I knew you when you were 2 days old, and I'm prouder for no one in the world better than I am for you, because I remember you when you was a little boy in Seminole, Oklahoma, riding a stick horse. And now you're putting on one of the biggest rodeos in the state of Oklahoma. Well, that makes you feel real good. I guess I always like to say that probably one of the things that hurt me most is a lot of the people that helped me get started. For example, my mother, my father, all the people that helped me learn the rodeo business or encouraged me to be in the rodeo business aren't here today to see the successful part of it. And people tell me all the time, oh, they're here. They see you. They still appreciate it.
That's right.
But
They're looking down on you.
They're looking down, and boy, I'm telling you, I hope they didn't see everything.
Well, it kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow when you think they've seen everything.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit how you started. What was your first rodeo? When did you go to your first rodeo? And what was that experience like for you?
Well, my first rodeo to participate in was in Drumright, Oklahoma in 1954. And at that time, it was called the All-Colored Rodeos. Nothing but African-American contestants there. I remember going there, and I didn't even have a horse. I was 16 years old. And this guy named Roy LeBlanc, who has been putting on, matter of fact, he passed away this year, has been putting on the rodeo there in Okmulgee, Oklahoma for the last 55 years.
Wow.
It was still called the All-Colored Rodeo. And I went to this rodeo, and I didn't have a horse. And, you know, people know if you can rope, but they heard about it. So he let me ride his horse. And that's something that cowboys don't usually do, especially the people that they don't know. And I've always remembered that and appreciated it. And I tell people about, you know, this guy will be a monument in my life forever.
That's
and it's
Roy
been
LeBlanc.
Roy LeBlanc.
Who were some of the other cowboys
I
you
guess
rode with over the years, or let you have a horse to ride in the early days when you, like you say, couldn't afford to? Because rodeo's a little bit expensive, isn't it? Talk about that,
especially the calf roping. Well, I guess I have to go back to when I was 9 years old, and I went to an all-colored rodeo at Boley, Oklahoma. Well, Boley, Oklahoma is an all-black town. It still is in a way. And I saw this guy named Marvell Rogers. He's from Idabel, Oklahoma. Marvell was about 6 foot tall, and he dressed very unique. When I say unique, he always had his boots shined. And looking good. He always wore his pants down in his boots. He wore a white shirt, and he had a stick pin with a big R on it in diamonds. Well, and he smoked a cigar, and he always had the cigar in a cigar holder. And, man, he had the most wonderful smile. If you saw him coming, you knew you were welcome to talk to him. Well, I met him. And I tell people this, I don't know if Marvell was very interested in me or whatever, but I had a cousin, and, boy, she was one of those eye catchers.
Good-looking gal on your arm, huh?
Boy, I'm telling
Even
you.
at 5,
well, at 5 and 9 years old, and this lady was probably 19, 20 years old. Well, Marvell gravitated to me because I had on a hat. And he said, hey, little
All
fella.
right. So
I know. I mean, I didn't know
we're
then.
running out of time
but I
here,
know
so we're
now
going to have
that I
to
was
catch
not
the rest of this
focus.
later on. So, yeah, so that's, I wanted y'all to hear Cleo himself, in his own words, that Roy LeBlanc, obviously a wonderful African-American cowboy, his whole family. I think it's actually, they started this rodeo years ago. His sons and family are continuing that rodeo. You can still go to Okmulgee for the Black Rodeo there. And what a great legacy in Oklahoma that we've had with them. Cleo originally from Seminole, Oklahoma, spent most of his adult life here in Lancaster, Texas, just outside of Dallas. But these are great memories. These are great Western legends. These are historical legends and living legends that we talk to. and we talk about here on Wild West Diversity. So we appreciate you so much for listening. This is episode 37. We'll be coming back. We'll be having some more of Charles Flores Hearn, our man on the ranch interviews. We'll be talking to the Diaz family about their Mexican charro and their legacy of 4, 5, 6 generations of charros who have participated and put on Mexican rodeos and kept that culture and that history and that heritage alive, and they're passing that on to the next generation. And so we hope to be there talking to Jerry and Sherry and their son Nicholas, who is a young man coming on too, and he's training horses and he's performing in the rodeos. And so this is a legacy that gets passed down. Western history and Western lifestyle is a family legacy. It's from generation to generation. And even with Cleo, like you say, his boys, Harlan, Robbie, Eldon, and Wendell, they're keeping that legacy alive. His grandchildren, Rachel Hearn is a barrel racer. His great-grandchildren, Charles and Cody Flores Hearn, as you see, they've been on. And Charles is working with us here at Wild West Diversity and managing our social media. So we hope you'll check that out. We'll hope you check us out. We'll go back to our YouTube channel, listen to the show on a podcast. If you have a podcast platform, Spotify or iHeart, something Spreaker that you are a favorite on, check us out there. And this has been episode 37, and I'm your host, Liz Lawless, for Wild West Diversity. We hope to see you next Thursday at 5 p.m. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail.